The purpose for the academic program review. The intent of the program review is to strengthen the college's academic programs. The Connecticut State College and University System and NCATE require that all academic programs undergo a comprehensive review on a periodic basis. For those of you who have been here with Charter Oak teaching for us and building courses for us for a number of years, we had the 5-year review, and now everything's just moving on to the schedule for the Board of Regents program review schedule, and it's been approved by them. So I presented during the annual faculty meeting information in regard to the programs that will be reviewed. The expectations, the results from the program review should lead to evaluative, directional, and planning decisions. And so you're going to be looking at it, your course in depth, to make some of these decisions. You're going to identify program outcomes that are not being met by the course outcomes. So when I talk about, and I'll define the definitions later, but there's the program outcomes and your course outcomes. And we're going to identify program outcomes that need to be updated, deleted, or modified. Based on results of this review, changes will be made by the lead instructors for the courses. And if it has to do with the course descriptions, the appropriate academic committee, we're going to present that information to them. That will be the program outcomes. The process, okay, lead instructors. This is a fairly new term within the last few years. We have the course developers, someone who developed the course. You may be the person that developed the course and has agreed to maintain the course, teach its course, and maintain the course. Or you may be the person that took over a course that someone else built, and you have taken on that responsibility of maintaining the course. This is the person we call at Charter Oak the lead instructor, who's responsible for developing, maintaining Charter Oak's courses and evaluating them. Lead instructors will make any changes to their courses as a result of their findings from this evaluation. Again, changes to the program outcomes. And the instructional design team is going to conduct another evaluation of the course at the same time you're evaluating. And what they will do with that evaluation, they're going to contact you so that they can talk about any changes that need to be made to the course, because of course we had during the annual faculty meeting the topic of ADA and other best practices for online learning. And this information we actually store in a spreadsheet, and actually it'll be presented to NEAS in the fall so that we can demonstrate how we're maintaining the quality of integrity of our programs. And also, you are going to be compensated for this process. So you're going to complete this workshop, you're going to do the review, and once you do the review, and I'll talk more at the end how that's going to happen, then you're going to receive compensation of $250 for completing the entire process. I have one other note that's not on this slide. The lead instructor will work with the instructional design team to make the appropriate updates based on best practices or pedagogy for online learning, and also the things that you see within your course that need to be taken care of. Terminology. When you see SLOs, that is your learning outcomes in your course. The PLOs are program learning outcomes, and those learning outcomes you will find on Charter Oak's website. So if you are in your courses are somehow categorized in business administration, all you have to do is Google business administration major, because now it's a major, and you will come to the page that will, one of the pages that will give you the program learning outcomes for the business administration. What are some of the other courses that are going to be reviewed? We have cybersecurity is going to be reviewed this year. Again, that program, the program learning outcomes are up under For our online, it's up under computer science, and then you'll see cybersecurity, and you'll find the program learning outcomes. So that when we start talking about mapping, that's what we're going to be talking about. Looking at what are your student learning outcomes, SLOs, and how do they align with the program learning outcomes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. Now, I'm using the terminology curriculum mapping exercise, and we're going to examine a couple of things when you're doing that. So when you're looking at your syllabus and then you're looking at your course, the first thing, of course, is your title. And the title necessarily, we won't be changing that within the system unless it's truly outdated as it relates to the field of study. So if you want to bring that to my attention, you can do that. But the first thing, other than all that information about your contact information, the course, the prerequisites, is, which I don't have here today, is your course description. So you want to review your course description and ensure that the course description describes what students will be learning in the course, and the information is relevant to the current field of study. And so with all of that, make sure that your course description is not outdated and it does not relate to actually what's being taught in the course. So you want to start there with your course description. Then from there, you want to look at your learning outcomes. This is an exercise to determine if the SLOs are appropriate for the level or course domain level for your review. And the level is your course a 100 level, 200 level, 300, etc. level course? And we want to take a look at that and make a determination if your course is about 75% aligned with the domain level. So if it's a 100 level course, how many of your SLOs are categorized as lower level? How many are upper level? And are there 75% of your courses at the appropriate level? And if not, this is what you're going to be doing when you're doing your review. You're going to look at what actions do you need to take to ensure the course is at its appropriate domain level. So curriculum mapping, you're going to take a look at your course and you're going to first look at the course description, make sure it's relevant to the field and it's updated and it also aligns with the information that's in the course. Secondly, you're going to look at your learning outcomes. You're going to determine what are upper level, lower level, and we're going to walk through an exercise to do that. And your course learning outcomes are your course learning outcomes, 75% of them at the appropriate level. And then we're going to talk about what actions need to be taken. And I'm sure most of you are aware of Bloom's taxonomy. And so when we're talking about learning domains or SLOs, we're looking at it from this perspective. Definition knowledge about 100. You can cross a little bit over into comprehension, but 200 level, 300 level, 400 level. Now, actually, I didn't get an opportunity to remove the numbers in front of this slide because I like people to walk through that and determine what is the appropriate level. But this time we're going to let it go and we'll just have a discussion. Now, just assume that this is a 100 to 200 level course. And I've placed the numbers based on Bloom's taxonomy here. And this is your worksheet. You can actually go through the entire course review process and just write it here. And I will be sending, after all the workshops are over, I'm going to send you a survey where you're going to populate the information you've placed here. You're going to populate it into the survey. So you'll have a couple of weeks or a week or so to go into your teaching shell, because we don't want you to make any changes to the master shell. Go into your teaching shell, make a thorough review, document the things you see. You're going to start putting that information there. And any additional information you think needs to be updated, you also will have an opportunity to put it in on this form and then take it and put it into the survey. So first, we're looking at the course description. After you fill out the beginning, you're going to look at your course description. You're going to look at your learning outcomes. The second thing we're going to look at are your courses at their appropriate domain. So I just want to take you through this worksheet. And this is the page I really want us to look at when we're looking at outcomes. And sometimes this is sort of difficult to understand. There are many Bloom's taxonomy documents out there, but one question I want everyone to ask themselves, by the end of this course, my students will be able to, and that's a question I'm going to continue to ask so that you understand there are some Bloom's active verbs that really are not, I would say, are weak as it relates to measuring students' learning outcomes. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. All right, so here are learning outcomes, 100 to 200 level course for political science course. And if you notice the first learning outcome, and if you were looking, if you've got in your hands the faculty worksheet, and I just showed you that page, what page is that? It is page 3. It has some action verbs listed on page 3 in that worksheet. And illustrate falls up under a 300 level. Discuss falls up under 100, 200, and it even can go to a 300 level. Identify, 100, and if you hear what I'm saying, assess, 300, evaluate. I put a question mark by number 6. Number 3 is analyze. Number 8 is examine. And number 9, discuss. So when I calculated this, there's about 50-50. 50% are at the appropriate domain level for a 100 and 200 level course, and 50% are at the higher level. So I would say if you're looking at something this way, you really need to say, well, this course, I could use a couple of these learning outcomes to be revised to place me in 75% of the courses at the appropriate domain level. Not that you can't use any of the upper level, but how do you think that a student feels when they get in a course that they think is a 100 or 200 level course and the information is presented at a 300 or 400 level course? We haven't set the student up to succeed. So we want to make sure that our learning outcomes are appropriate for the level, course level. If it's 100, 200, whatever the course level, we want to make sure that that is appropriate. Then we want to present, consider making sure that the learning outcomes are measurable. They're measurable. So look at this. There are some learning outcomes that are weak and some that are strong, and we want to make sure that they're measurable. Measurable student learning outcomes. So we review, if you have that document, review Bloom's taxonomy, and we're going to examine the action verbs presented and determine if your student learning outcomes are measurable and what actions you will take. So let's take a look at those same learning outcomes again. Well, let me jump to number 6, present the steps. I would say this is sort of a weak learning outcome because actually is an activity. Does everybody agree? What's your thoughts? And I'm going to look at the chat to see what your thoughts are on that. I have 2 yeses. I have a agree and a yes. And can somebody sort of maybe explain why? I see there's some questions in the chat room, and I'm going to go back to that. So can you tell me why you would, that I consider it actually an activity versus a learning outcome? And the reason why I'm presenting this way, so that when our instructional design team brings this to your attention, they're trying to be supportive and assist you on understanding what is an active action verb versus just an activity. Okay, we have response. It is not the end result. It's the actions presented to act to get to that point. You're absolutely correct. Similar to listings, minimum understanding required. Well, present, yes, it's minimum understanding required, and it actually is one action. It's not the broad action. And I need to step back because we have a question. Here's another question. Should the outcome and not the output? Can you explain that a little bit more? The outcome, not the output. And while I'm waiting for an addition to that response, we have a question. If we are the course designer / lead instructor, we are conducting an evaluation of our own course. That is correct. If you built the course or took over a course for somebody else who built it, right now we need you to review this course in detail, to give us feedback on any updates and changes, and maybe you feel there's nothing that needs to be changed, but we really need you to go through the process so we'll know. I agree to your question because the SLO should be an outcome and not an output that students present in class. Correct. That is absolutely correct. The same emphasis as activity. This is something they do, not necessarily by the end of the course they should be able to do. And that's a broader question. Okay, is there any? And what is the timeline for completion? When I get to the end, I'm going to talk about the timeline for that question. All right, let me go back to the presentation. All right, so here we have the number 6 says present, and this is just the output, the activity that they're supposed to be doing. That was a great example. So if we looked at every one of the illustrations, by the end of the course, students should be able to illustrate the process of how to register to vote in voting. And so when we talk about that, they should be able to identify and describe. Identify and describe. That is 2 activities, not activities, those 2 things that students should be able to do by the end of the class. And I may come back to that slide again. Now, we're looking at the learning outcomes, and let me go back to that slide. We need to know if a learning outcome is measurable. So if we're looking at this as a measurable learning outcome, when you use the word illustrate, then you have to say what assessment will I include in this course, assessment and materials that align with that learning outcome, that by the end of the course, I will be able to say, and we only have grades to prove it, that students are able to illustrate the process of how to register and vote and voting. So I hope that makes sense. Now you have to look at your assessment, your activities, your materials, your grading process to determine how successful students were at illustrating the process of how to register and to vote. Now, assessing student learning. So you're going to review your course assessments. You're going to look at your grades and other materials to determine if they align with the student learning outcomes. So your assessment, you're going to measure students on how they learn what you presented in the course. And the other supporting materials must align with that as well. So you're looking to make sure that you didn't give students 10 chapters to read, but only one of them really align with the material, because you don't want them to be totally distracted by a lot of information and not focus on what it is you want them to know by the time they leave this course, or able to do by the time they leave the course. Discuss the value of alignment of graded assignments to SLOs. How does your grade assignment measure students' mastery or level of mastery of the SLOs? And how does your assessment measure your students' achievement of the SLOs for the course? And then you're going to discuss findings. So these are things you're going to be looking at. So the grades is all we have to measure at this point, unless we have something, but it's the major thing that everybody uses to measure students' level of mastery. And some people may not like the word that I use, mastery, of the learning outcomes. But if we don't have the appropriate activities, assignments, lectures, supporting materials, even institutional resources, then a student can't be successful. So you want to make sure that there's that alignment, so that you have your course description that tells what's going to happen, a high-level overview of what's going to happen in the course, what they should learn, what it's all about. Then you have your learning outcomes that says by the end of this course, something would have taken place that students will be able to demonstrate that by the time they leave this course, they are able to do this. At what level? At an A level, a B level, C, etc. They'll be able to, and we want to remove all things or obstacles that will keep them from being able to do that. So sample assessments, I only just identified a few. So sample assessments, methods, and I put etc. But if we're looking at one of the learning outcomes and the ones that said identify and describe the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. So we have to ensure by the end of the course, students are able to identify the first 10 amendments of the Constitution and be able to describe it. So your assessment may be an exam that provides an essay portion where the exam list in some form tests them on their ability to identify the 10 amendments, and the essay provides some form of being able to describe it. When we look at one of the learning outcomes said, assess the role of Congress, presidency, etc. So then where are the readings? And possibly this could be a research paper or essay. But by the time they finish this course, I know that they have at some level mastered the learning outcomes through the assessment and materials that I have provided for each learning outcome. Okay, question. How much weight should be put on quizzes versus assignments? I mean quizzes versus written assignments. You know what? This is my philosophy on that. You have to determine what it is that you want them to learn and the value of the assessment to ensure they learned it. So if it's math, it may be it may be a quiz, and they may have 25 to 50 questions on that quiz where students have to work through the problem, which demonstrates, they are able to do it. But if it is not maybe math, you have to make that judgment depending on what it is you want them to walk away with by the end of the course. That's why I presented for this learning outcome, identify and describe, it could be an exam with an essay. It could be just an essay. It depends on what materials you have there to support them to be able to do a very well, clear and concise job, and you can really judge that they learned what you wanted them to learn by the end of that process. So I won't say how much weight, because I don't believe in weight. I believe in making sure you develop your learning outcomes, your assessments, and you've made good choices, that if the essay weighs the most on this essay means a lot and tells a whole lot about what students learn, that's good. But I do have issues with a lot of quizzes because quizzes only emphasize students' ability to memorize information. So do you want them to memorize it or be able to apply it? Is it just a foundational course where they need to know terms? It's a 100-level course. They need to understand terms, what it means. You might use quizzes. But as you move beyond that 200, 300-level course, I'm not sure if quizzes are that effective. And remember, this is my bias. Everyone may have their own thoughts on that. But I don't focus on weights. I focus on what is it they're supposed to learn and how am I going to provide the information to ensure by the end of that course, students will be able to do this, that, etc. And I'm able to measure it with what we have is measured appropriately with grades. So I said a whole lot, but hopefully I answered your question. Let me know. And also, we have some challenges with faculty and their discussion questions, making them 2.5. So if the instructional design team tries to help you with those weights as far as for the grade center, it's because it creates some technical issues, and also are you sure that's all the value you want on that? So they'll work with you. So take a look at your grade center, take a look at your percentages you put on each assignment, and make sure they're appropriate for what you want them to walk away with. All right. So these are just some samples of assessments. But remember, you don't only want assessments. You want to make sure you have your readings, if it's lectures, if it's videos. You want to make sure that that information is adequate to ensure students, if they read it all and take it in, they will be successful at accomplishing that learning outcome. And remember, the instructional design team is going to review your course in one element, as I mentioned earlier. They're going to review it for ADA and other best practices for online learning. So, of course, they're going to look at your grade book because we've had a lot of challenges with the grade book not calculating correctly because we put in weights that just weren't appropriate. The other thing is we're going to look at, do you have 2 graded assignments in the course? That's required by Charter Oak. You can have more, but you have to have a minimum of 2 graded assignments. So make sure your course has that minimum 2 graded assignments as well. So they're going to help you a little bit. They're going to do a review. They have a checklist. They're going to do a review. They're going to call you, contact you to discuss any changes that you have identified that you would like to see in your course. And then that's sort of what we're going to present to NEAS when they come in the fall. But I will be submitting this report to the Board of Regents in, I would say, the end of July, 1st of August. So I will get to the timeline, the question about the timeline. So mapping, another mapping exercise. So you're going to look at your course. You're going to do a thorough review of your course. And on that faculty worksheet, you're going to really be writing information down, any changes. And again, your course, you might feel very comfortable with it, so you won't have to worry about it. But you still have to submit that survey outlining that you reviewed the information and put in the content that you've reviewed it. It looks well. Some of you may have just redesigned your course and only need some minor updates and changes. But everyone has to submit the survey that I'm going to send you so that I can issue the payment for the entire process. So now we're going to look at map the SLOs to the PLOs, and this is what I call the backward piece, because normally you start with the program learning outcomes if it's a new program, and then all courses are mapped to it. But now we have to do it the other way around because Charter Oak started by building courses, then we moved to concentrations once we got enough courses, and now we're moving them to majors. So we need to do that mapping. So you're going to review the sample map. I'm going to show you, this one says political science, but I think I pulled up the criminal justice. And we're going to do just practice. I'm going to explain it a little bit about what this mapping document is. But this is what it's going to look like. And so I'm going to show you on the form that, on the worksheet, the blank form. But if you notice, here are the political science courses. And if you look at the very right where it says Gen Eds, you're going to have to put in certain information to indicate what the what courses address certain general education components. And if you notice, this tells me that there's I have some concerns about the courses that are developed. If you look at the POL 350, it was built, and I remember it was built before it was a concentration, so it did not have anything to map to. And so now we have students taking a course that, of course, this does not support them by the time they get to their capstone course. So every concentration and every major, students have to complete a capstone course. And that capstone course is a measurement Charter Oak uses to determine if students learn the program learning outcomes. If they're walking away, by the end of the program, can we say that the students have accomplished all of the learning outcomes? So if you look on the side, there's the learning outcomes. So here we have POL 350 is not mapping at all. And so those are concerns. So once we do this map, I may have to come back and say there's some concerns here because your course is not mapping at all to the program learning outcomes. So let me just stay here, but I'm going to switch screens again and go to the faculty worksheet. Okay. So here you'll find in the faculty worksheet, I've sort of done some edits to this and moved out some of the weak verbs. But if you Google Bloom's taxonomy, there's many of them out there. But the key is you want to make sure that actually it is an action verb that says what students will be able to do by the end of the course. Now, this is the mapping document, and it may not look exactly like this on the survey, but this is what you're going to do. So you want to take this document, and you want to go to Charter Oak website, Google your concentration or major, find the program learning outcomes. You can put them in this box here, and when you get the survey from me, they'll already be there. And then you're going to put, your course will show up at the top, so you can just do your one course. I'll have many courses going across the top. And then you're going to look at your learning outcomes and start determining which one of the program outcomes address the program, which one of your student learning outcomes address the program learning outcomes. And this is the coding you're going to use. At the bottom is the coding. H is primary focus of the course or degree requirements. Major focus is addressed in the course, and then just leave no entry if there's nothing there. I'm going to sort of go back. So then we have the general ed requirements, and at the top I have here the question. List the course student learning outcomes. You're going to list your course student learning outcomes. And remember I mentioned to you on the right there was this gen ed, general education in the box, the general education. Now, there you're going to say you address general education requirements. You address A, literature and fine arts. You'll see if any of these apply. I hope a lot of them apply will have something like written communication, if you have papers that are due. Any type of technology that you're using in the course, maybe some information literacy. So at least I hope that we're writing and not taking all tests unless you're a 100 level course and a lot of quizzes are offered. Is there any ethical decision-making component? So you would take it and put if you have written communication, so they're doing discussions, they have some written assignments, then you would put next to the appropriate, if it's learning outcome number 1, then you would put E right there. So that's another component. You're going to map your courses to the PLO. So when you map it on here, I'm one of those people who do it with paper first, and you find that you really don't have anything in your course that's mapping to your program learning outcomes, then that is something you need to document in this form and also on the survey you receive so that you can make what appropriate updates you need to make to your course. Okay, so I'm going to go back and see if there's any questions. Okay, so if we revised the course last fall, can that document be used for this purpose? Okay, you revised your course. Did you do a redevelopment? Or did you go through this workshop last time? I don't think you went to the workshop. This is not a redevelopment of your course. This is an evaluation of your course. So I need this information. Even if you redeveloped it, I need you to go through it. And like I said, you may not see anything that really needs to be done because you just redeveloped it. So you're going to put down, here are all the gen eds that are addressed. Here are my course maps to the following program learning outcomes. 75% of my courses, my learning outcomes are at the appropriate level. Course description has just been updated. You still have to fill out the information because it's not a redevelopment, it's an evaluation. Okay. Where do we find the courses in the concentration? You want to go to Charter Oak's website, and if you are, so we have cybersecurity. So you'll type in and Google cybersecurity. Usually the first link will take you to the program, the concentration, or the major. And right there on that page, if it's not at the very top, just scroll down and you'll find the program learning outcomes for a concentration or major. What is the difference between code H for primary focus of a course or degree and major focus? Okay, the difference between those two. So here they have one of the learning outcomes for the political science major is evaluate political, economic, and social systems. For one course, that is their primary focus for the course. They don't have a secondary focus. So I would say one primary is the entire focus of the course. The secondary focus would be major focus. And I know these are sort of words that are almost similar. And what happened was when I started here, these were the codes they use. And when you go to conduct assessments and you're being reviewed by NEAS, you try not to change things that would make them question why you're doing that. So the primary focus of one course in the political science is they evaluate political and economic. That's the primary focus of the course. They have no secondary focus for that course. Let me click it again. All right. So just take a look at your course. And again, I'm calling it backwards mapping because normally you do this when a course starts new, but our model was a little bit different, so we have to make sure. But do not be concerned if you're looking at the program learning outcomes and nothing is a major, minor, you maybe address it a little bit. This is just something you now in your evaluation notice that we need to take a look at and see how we can resolve that. Because remember, every course is supporting the student to complete the capstone project. And their project clearly has to demonstrate that they learned all of these things in the program learning outcomes in their coursework. So remember I said I call it the alignment, aligning SLOs with the student assessment, and this is the exercise. If your course is 8 weeks, you look at every week. So you're looking at every module for every week. You're looking at every graded assignment or graded activity and the course materials to support that week's learning. And then you're asking yourself the question, does the SLO for this week align with the graded activities and course materials, yes or no? If not, so we're asking you to be honest. There's no penalty to this. We really just have to be concerned with the quality of our courses. And if your course hasn't been reviewed for the last 5 years, it really needs to be reviewed now. And remember, this is not a redevelopment. This is not a development. This is actually assessing the course. So if you just redeveloped it, it's a perfect time to just take another look, and you're looking at it from a different perspective. So if you have 15 weeks, please take a look at all 15 weeks, and you're going to have time. I'm not going to ask you to do this without it. So now, up under number 6, put on the faculty worksheet, I need you to list the actions that need to be taken as a result of this course review process. So I presented some examples. SLOs 1, 4, and 6 are not measurable and should be revised. And see, this is where our instructional design team will help you. The course description needs to be revised. The assessment or graded activity for week 3 does not align with any of the SLOs and should be revised. Another example could be my course does not have any of its primary activities as a primary component or focus to support the program learning outcome. So here's a sample, and it's in your packet of an activity that's already done. And if you notice again here clearly, PLO 350 has nothing that is addressing the program learning outcomes, and that's concerning. And so we may need to look at that as an entire redesign to ensure that there is some focus, that the students are not taking this course just because. There has to have some end meaning for it. And of course, here are the gen eds on the side. So this course, the gen eds, let me look at the gen ed page. they have a lot of emphasis for the political science concentration on literature and fine arts, and they also have U.S. history and government, which makes sense for that concentration. And these are some additional information that you can take a look at. So you want to pull your syllabus up as well and make any, take a look at that. If you make any changes to the course, it has to be made to the syllabus as well. So you need to bring that to our attention. So if you have any questions about things being measurable, we could go ahead and I'll take a look for questions. And please ignore this last one. I need to update it because actually the programs that are being reviewed for this term is business administration, which includes accounting and finance courses, information systems, cybersecurity, healthcare administration, health studies, and American studies are the courses that are going to be reviewed this period. Okay, so let me take a look and see if we have questions. To clarify, step 1 is creating a list of everything that needs to be updated. Step 2 is communicating them to the school dean. Okay, step 1 is you're going to take the worksheet, go into your teaching shell, and you're going to look at all the questions that I have listed here, and you are going to, in a sense, this is your rough draft, make notes on all components here. And you may need some additional space or paper. And I'm going to send you a survey on May 20th. That's why I'm saying you have this time, a little more than 2 weeks, to go into your teaching shell and do the review based on this worksheet, based on the PowerPoint, based on all the tools that I've given you. And if you have any questions, I'm definitely will be able to answer them for you. So my last workshop is May 19th, that's Thursday, and on that Friday I'm going to send you a survey. So during this time, please take the time, go in your shell, and complete this process. And any additional things that you see that need some changes, this is the time to just share all of it. So to your comment, that's the first step. Start doing your look and review before you get the survey. Then you should be able to send the survey immediately. After you send the survey, that's when I will issue the payment when that's complete. Our instructional design team will be reviewing your course as well, and they will also, they actually develop a spreadsheet where they have your feedback, their feedback, and then the actions we've taken. So the actions we've taken should clearly describe that the instructional design team contacted you. If you indicated there's some issues that they cannot go in and check themselves, and then they'll work with you to get those updates made. And after they work with you to get those updates made, then they will let you into the master shell to see if it's all working correctly. They will take you back out after that. And from that point on, you have completed your assessment for, it's a 7-year rotation according to the state of the Board of Regents. No, you no longer have access to the master shell. There's a question. I thought we no longer have access to our teaching shell. You have access to your teaching shell, but you don't have access to the master shell. We don't want you to make the changes in the master shell because this is a thorough review. So if there's ADA concerns, they're going to bring that to you as it relates to videos, text, things like that. Okay, so no touch the master shell. Yes, no touch the master shell. The reason why we can't have you touch the master shell, and that's why I'm telling you go to the teaching shell, and you can't get into the teaching shell, of course, bring it to our attention, is because we are now accountable, and we don't want to get sued for people making changes that don't align to certain regulations and requirements. And we had those issues in the past, and they were very serious. And so, and now, we have to be careful that we have students coming in with disabilities, and once we have that course sort of set, meeting those requirements. So this is why this is taking place, because they're going to help clean that up too. So I know that it's painful not to have the master shell, but there are really legitimate reasons why we can't do that at this time. but you will get access to look at it after the edits are made. You will get access to the master show after the edits are made. And what point does the design team expect to have it? Well, remember, they still have to go through the review process. So this is not going to happen overnight. So as soon as we get the information from you, then, you can breathe and relax. The instructional design team will take all these courses. They'll break it up between the team. They'll go through, they have a checklist, and they're going to review it. And I give them about 2 weeks to do it, 2 to 3 weeks to do it. After they complete that, then they should be, and if they don't contact you, you need to contact me. If you feel that there were some edits to be made and you don't hear from them about making those changes, definitely email me, say, Emily, I haven't heard anything, what's the status? And they should email you so that we can make those changes. And I'm going to say thank you, and I know that once you get finished with this, you'll start working with it and you'll have questions. So definitely just email me. All right, I'm going to say thank you. I'm not going to hold you any longer. And so you have a great day. Thank you.